Society never stops arguing about boomers, millennials, and Gen Z. But there is an entire generation sitting quietly in the middle, completely unbothered, watching the chaos unfold. Generation X. They are the people who will fix a catastrophic crisis without forming a committee and then tell absolutely no one about it. The modern world looks at their silence and labels them as cynical, detached, or emotionally unavailable. But what if this isn't a personality flaw? What if their deep-seated allergy to asking for help and that profound peace they feel when their phone doesn't ring is actually an elite neurological survival mechanism? Today, we are decoding the hidden cytology of the invisible generation. And if you relate to this, you are about to realize your biggest flaw is actually your greatest superpower.
Pop culture loves to paint Gen X as the sarcastic sidekick in a 90s sitcom, the one sipping black coffee while everyone else is having a loud emotional meltdown. Society looks at this and assumes they're just naturally cold, cynical, or that they simply don't care. But to understand this aloofness, you have to rewind the tape to the 1970s and 80s. Welcome to the era of the Latchkey Kid. Imagine being 8 years old and walking into a completely empty house after school. There are no smartphones, no Ring cameras, no GPS tracking. You let yourself in, make a tragic microwave snack, do your homework in absolute silence, and just wait. Psychologists refer to this as growing up in a high-contingency environment. In plain, non-academic English, it means a world with zero buffer zone between your actions and the consequences. If you broke a rule or messed up, there was no one to rescue you or listen to a 45-minute explanation about your feelings. The consequences hit hard and fast. This didn't just make them independent, it fundamentally hardwired their developing brains to map out cause and effect in real time. They learned early that nobody is coming to save you, so you better figure it out. They grew up watching adults preach about stability and happily ever after, only to watch divorce rates absolutely skyrocket through the 70s and 80s. They saw their parents give their literal blood, sweat, and tears to massive corporations, only to get handed a cardboard box and a pink slip the second the economy sneezed. The adults chanted this magical mantra, work hard, follow the rules, and life will work out. But then Gen X watched those rules change mid-game. Because of this, modern society loves to label them as cynical, but psychology has a much better term for this. It's called defensive pessimism. And here is the massive paradigm shift. Defensive pessimism is not depression. It is not being a negative, toxic presence. It is a highly evolved cognitive armor. It means you expect the rug to be pulled out from under you, not because you are a buzzkill, but because your childhood taught you that the rug is always slippery. You hope for the best, but you are always mentally packed for the worst. This is the exact reason why Gen Xers are elite crisis managers. When a project fails, a relationship ends, or the world literally shuts down, other generations might panic because their expectations of a perfect world are shattered. But the Gen X brain just sighs, drinks some water, and instantly activates backup plan C. They aren't cold or detached, they just realized how incredibly fragile the system is decades before the rest of us did. They don't rely on blind, toxic optimism. They rely on their own unshakable competence.
But here is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Let's talk about how this generation actually processes information, because it is entirely different from the rest of us. Before the internet, knowledge had a physical weight to it. If you needed an answer, you couldn't just watch a 15-second tutorial while sitting on the toilet. You had to physically hunt through library card catalogs. And if your bike chain slipped or the TV flickered, you didn't call a technician. You flipped the bike upside down, got grease on your hands, and figured it out. Cognitive psychologists call this deeper encoding. Because information required actual physical effort and time to obtain, it became permanently integrated into their memory. This built a profound mechanical intuition, a deep-seated belief that with enough patience and a screwdriver, you can master the physical world. And this perfectly explains their bizarre relationship with social media. Gen X literally built the internet, yet they refuse to post their breakfast on it.
Younger generations assume they are just bad with technology. No, they grew up in a time when privacy was the default. If you messed up as a kid, maybe 3 people knew about it, and that was it. They learned early on that visibility equals vulnerability. Keeping their lives offline isn't tech illiteracy, it's a highly strategic, calculated shield. They hold the ultimate power of being completely untraceable in a world that is desperately obsessed with being seen. But having this elite level of hyper-independence comes with a very quiet, very heavy paradox. You are arguably the most capable generation on the planet at handling a 5-alarm crisis, but you fundamentally struggle with the concept of depending on anyone else. Research actually identifies this as patterns of self-reliance that border on anxiety. During stressful periods, Gen Xers report significantly lower levels of seeking social support. And it's not because you don't have friends or people you could ask, it's because to a brain that was raised to figure things out alone, asking for help physically feels like admitting defeat. It feels like a vulnerability you simply cannot afford. This creates a fascinating inner conflict when raising your own kids. You watch them grow up in a completely different world of helicopter parents, constant supervision, and social media documenting absolutely everything. You intentionally give your kids the attention and safety net you never had, but deep down you quietly worry that you've made them too soft, too dependent, and too visible. Because in the Gen X worldview, being visible literally means being vulnerable.
The truth is, Generation X might be the last generation on Earth that truly understands what it means to be alone with your own thoughts. You know how to be profoundly bored and how to solve a complex problem without immediately Googling the answer. You are the ultimate bridge generation. You literally built the modern digital world, yet you refuse to let it consume your soul. And the thing about bridges is that they rarely get the attention they deserve. They are just there, doing the heavy lifting, holding everything together, and expecting absolutely nothing in return. And honestly, maybe that is the most beautifully Gen X thing of all, fixing the world and genuinely not caring if anyone notices. If this hit home for you, and you finally feel like you found your invisible tribe, hit that subscribe button. We decode the hidden psychology of minds just like yours every single week. See you in the next one.